No, I've got something to say about my mother in law. She passed away last night. The sweetest lady you'd ever know. Which brings me to uh, the church. She went, 3 to 5 times a week to church. That explains why my to be wife is religious. But it also brought me to why the churches are really doing it inappropriately. Um, she believed that whatever the church said, she would do. And her and I had some great conversations about, she was Catholic, about the church. And how in my book, which she never got to read because she couldn't see, and it was really difficult for her. And I had just finished it. I mean, she was getting up in her years. She was 85 years old. Um, but I'll tell you, with the church thing, it really rubbed me the wrong way, even though it did wonders for her because she did everything, but everything through the church, which had its own payoff. But I think that a lot of it is can be easier and better about finding the God thing. And what it does for us in marriage, which their marriage, she was married, oh, I don't know, 55 years, and my to be wife's name is Patty. Her dad died probably about 5 years ago now, which and my dad died probably 9 or 10 years ago now. And they had both of our parents had a wonderful relationship, with the exception of her dad was kind of an angry guy, got mad and yelled a lot. But besides that, it seemed as if they had a wonderful upbringing in Mexico, Toluca. And as we did with my parents, we had a great childhood. We traveled throughout all the states and in a travel trailer. My childhood memories were wonderful, and my relationship with my dad he was probably my best friend all the way through the years. And the reason why I don't agree with divorce is because I was robbed of that through my divorce on something that I didn't want in the first place. As you know, my ex-wife forced it, and that's okay, because it's been 25 years. So, um, but my parents, I mean, my kids didn't really have that opportunity to become close with their dad because their mom prevented me all these years from seeing them. And she'll say, "Oh, I never did that." And I mean, that's bullshit. But we all look at it our own ways, and people have to believe it or not. My point is, I don't care if you believe me or not. I'm just making a statement. Um, and the truth of the matter is, because it's not known how to fix a relationship, to merge it, because the God thing has been looked at it wrong and presented wrong. And when I started talking with my mother in law about that, she was like, "I want to hear more. This is actually interesting because it's something totally different than the churches teach, um, because we're just not looking at God in the array of looking at the full picture. We're just looking at a very small part of what the church leads us to believe, which is wrong because she said to me that the church teaches us how to think. And I said, well, that's the first thing that's wrong is we are all our own people and we all should be led to think the way we want to think. But the truth is that it all should lead to the God thing. And how it should lead is like a perfect example, like of knowledge, the way, how it's supposed to work, not how the churches teach us to think it should work, which is preventing us from seeing it properly. Like, just look at it this way. Forget what you've been taught within the churches. Just think that if Jesus's teachings were correct, 100% right on spot on, right on. But maybe they're wrong that he's not our savior. He's just like us in trying to say, you know, this is what my Father wanted me to teach you. You are the same exactly as me. Then all of a sudden we have all these gods out there. Wouldn't that be a better way to think about it? Of course it would. I mean, they have us think that he's the only one God and Jesus, the little baby, is the one God. Well, they're looking at it inappropriately. The one God is all of us multidimensionally when you look at it. And see, I'm not a religious person. I found this through my divorce, another way of looking at God. So when I told my mother-in-law that the name of my book, she said, oh, well, the churches have been teaching me this for years, that's wrong. The human race is God too. Also, he is your name. And she was like blown away, saying that can't be because the churches taught me that that's incorrect. I said, well, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It means that we're all God before we get to God. So it's like a process where water seats its own level. Once water seats its own level, then God takes over. But we can answer our own prayers when we hit the God thing of being his equal intellectually because of that small little part inside of us on our spiritual side that is God, that all of us have to tap into, in which we have to put together a way to learn all that information. And the best people to help me teach that are the pros. Number one, like Oprah. Number two, Anthony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, John Gray, Eckhart Tolle. There's just a bunch of them. And after I learned this from all of these people, it's like, okay. And also the churches, specifically the Catholic religion, not what they've done right, but what they've done wrong. Why we haven't united the world is because specifically they're preventing us for doing that only because they're preaching partial truths where it is the incorrect information, and we can enhance it, not diminish it. But they're such sticklers, and by, I guess, using this as a raw footage, that my team can actually um, put together the correct um, footage for the for the Catholic religion. We might send it up there. So you know, like very simply, that the reason why I'm not married now is the Catholic Church won't allow me to have an annulment. And I said, okay, why is that? Because they still view my first marriage as being um, together. They're still looking at it that my first wife and I are still married. Now, mind you, this is 25 years ago. I have, over the last 25 years, I've probably haven't spoken to her more than 10 minutes for the whole 25 years. I mean, you know, as I've said, she's like, buried her head in the sand and forgot about me entirely and just moved on. I knew I was in trouble when I got married because she did the same thing to her maid of honor. She just dumped her you know, a bag of hot rocks. I mean, bar none. She's just that way. If she didn't like you, she was very hard on people, and I always said that. But on the other hand, she had a beautiful, very nice side of her. So, anyway, the church would not allow me to get an annulment, and my daughter said, and my ex-wife didn't even comment on it, but she had told my daughter that, quit telling people I had an affair, then I would help you. And I was like, well, if it's the truth, then the truth is the truth. I mean, whatever it is, it doesn't matter anymore. So, but it does, because we had 3 kids together. And what people don't realize is 3 kids to commence. What's that word? Consummated. So a marriage was consummated humanly as sexually. But what the churches don't voice or fail to realize is to consummate a marriage spiritually is to have a child. Because what happens on the human side about having sex, you can have a child. It just kind of goes together, right? And that connects you to life. And when they fail to see that Jesus, the Jesus that was the child, it's your child that's Jesus, not Jesus as the one person, but as all of us. Now, when we change that perception in the right way, in the way that they've manifested this over all of these years, I'm looking at it and saying, really, is it me? Am I the only one thinking this? Well, I got this through my divorce 25 years ago. And I always said to my first wife that I think God is here with us. He's not up in the air. He's not up in heaven. Because when we die, we change. Our form changes. Our body is left here and our spirit goes up. Well, when we have our spirit side and our death and our life unite, we can do that probably through knowledge. There's not one thing that can't be explained about God in our language if we look at it appropriately. And Anthony Robbins didn't even know, but he helped me dissect the twins in language, the non-physical and the physical side merged together will explain God about how it comes back to itself, which is the laws of thought that our professors need to match our scientists to see how that works, because they work perfect together when it comes back to itself. That's kind of like having the non-physical side and the physical side come back to itself, where it's the full truth, because each of the physical and non-physical is a partial truth. It's not using the whole truth. Now, with that being said, even though it is a partial truth, it still acts as if it's the whole truth on one side, because it's complete by itself. On non-physical and physical is complete by itself. It's just like a man on this side and a woman on this side. We're both equal, and we're both symmetrical, but as a human being, it takes both sides, a man and a woman, and you need to do that within yourself to be able to be whole, because you're just a partial truth if you don't see it, and it's not really being taught that way. So if we don't unite ourselves first with all of the backgrounds of, like, the need to be right, to get over the fear of death, and all the stuff that I have listed out in my book, as to the spiritual side, which is not what you think it is. It's looking at it differently. And after I did all of that and I became one with myself, it says, okay, now if one of you knows God, you can keep your relationship together and unite your marriage of the opposite sex. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So, but my to-be wife is so religious that she's not going to see it, to be able to, the two that is God, she's not going to be able to unite herself, because the religion is keeping her from it. They have this way of saying that, look at God first and then you're second, but they're wrong. What is God is what unites oneself, the human side and the spiritual side. When it comes back to itself, it's the same as God, which can be intellectually part or the same, the mere image of God. And I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So if I make that the mere image of God, that's the same for everybody. So really, that small part of you on your spiritual side, that is the same for each and everybody, whether man, woman, or child, is exactly the same for each of us. That's when we've pinpointed who God is. Now, after we unite God that way, however it is the same, that's on the part where we've come 100% of the human part of God. Now we can go the rest of the way. But all of us have to unite there first, like through knowledge. We can get to the part in language almost where we can answer our own prayers, like our sickness, our cancer, health, our human conditioning, and unite life and death. I mean, now this may be to the normal person, somebody that's looking at it as a visionary, but it has nothing to do with being a visionary. It has to do with what knowledge has the power to do. And that power is unbelievable once we unlock each stage of it. It's like levels of each level that you can unlock. It's almost like this game. And once we unlock that game, we start seeing other things. And if you're not there, the other person thinks you're a nut and crazy, only because they can't see it or know it. And I can tell you right now, I'm one of the few in the world that sees this. And I learned it from all these professionals and the church. Now, if we did the God thing appropriately, wouldn't it be better to have no disease, which encompasses health problems, very, very low divorce rate, um, and unite our, we would be uniting our marriages. Um, I mean, wouldn't that really be God's plan, where it doesn't matter what you think, what you believe, or what you know, because it just is that way? And everything that we want to know in the universe is by God's plan. Now, if it doesn't fit in his plan, it's the human way, not the spiritual way. And it will give us exactly what is right and wrong, but there is no right and wrong between spiritual and our human side, and that's what throws us off. Now, this part is all in the book, so you really have to read it to understand and have a whole foundation of where I came from. Now, remember, this is looking at it differently, the God thing. So people will look at it and say, well, I don't believe that. It's not a matter of what you believe, really. I was just informed that me calling it the God thing gives it a less importance than it is. As I've said, she's more religious than me. So put it down in the comments if you don't think I should use the God thing and just say God. That would be helpful. Thank you. Maybe I should wear the same shirt so that this is just raw footage, so you could just cut it in, edit it in. Let me know if that's a good idea. Thanks. So then, after my mother-in-law's 85 years, the better part of her life going to church, up to 5 or 6 times a week, unbelievable. But with that being said, I mean, I saw what the church thing did for her. I mean, it really calmed her down. She was, a hugely spiritual person. So, I mean, it does the same thing that mine does for you. I mean, but it's not doing it. It's doing it in an intellectual way, but it's really difficult for somebody to really see and understand that intellectual part. So, I just think that, people, once they start understanding that the God is knowledge and not something, and this may sound bad, but it's not something to pray to. It's something that we have to figure out, where all of us collectively, by knowledge, will understand God. Now, as I've broken out the twins in language to actually merge how the universe on the non-physical side and on the physical side, which is the same as a person, as a human being. That's why we are, God's mirror image. And with that being said, it shows us how to do all of this, which is, I mean, really beautiful. It shows that once we unite ourselves, which is coming back to itself, where a human being comes back to itself, which is God, and we become whole or we become one, then we start seeing where collectively, when we all start doing that, we can manifest into a new life, a new world of knowledge. I'm not saying that I'm individually only God. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we all have that ability, but we need to be trained appropriately and also enhance it as where it will only enhance if we're correct or we're right. And right now I can see where the churches are right in a lot of areas, but they're wrong to be able to get to the next step of what we can do to know God. And I'm trying to change the landscape of first trying to solidify where I'm correct, where I've sent my book to the 3 scientists, where, you know, religion and science actually are one, which is God's proxy. Now, if you can do that on an intellectual level, you'll go, wow, this is pretty cool. And that's what I want the world to see and know, where I may not be all right in how I've put together the rules and regulations, but I'll tell you, I've enhanced them greatly. And that allows us to get to the part of being all knowing. And I did put that in my book. So I can guarantee you this, I am partially right, or it is the next step to enhance humanity's knowledge, where it will go down in history. But I really want the pros to see it first, because with all of them collectively seeing what I've done, that's where I know for a fact that I'm correct, where all of them kind of get together even after read my book or on their own together. I don't care whether it takes me to explain it or it's done through my book. I think I've done it appropriately in my book, but as I've said, a lot's been cut out by different editors. As I've said, I've had 4 professional editors. So all of them had their hand at putting what they thought was correct, which initially is not the onset of God. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to make it where it is the same for everybody, not just me. And all of this came from the divorce. Initially, when I got divorced, we went through a bunch of attorneys. And because I didn't want the divorce, I was on my ex-wife's side trying to show where they were just trying to get her for her money. And because of the love that I had for her, I submitted at least 4 or 5 disbarments, where all of them were disbarred. I wouldn't say all because of me, but mostly because of me, because of the claims that I had. Now, I mean, it even started back with her boyfriend, her boss, that she said to me where I ruined it for her. And I was like, what are you talking about? We're married. I didn't ruin it for you. We have kids together. Therefore, you should work it out. And now that you didn't want to work it out, you just bolted and said there's too many small things that went wrong. Well, that's just crap. I mean, women are sometimes more emotional than men. So, I'm sorry, but they have to learn how to manage and control their emotions. And if they don't, they can lose it. They can easily break the family up, which is insane. It's completely idiotic and stupid because where she went wrong by not loving me was not lack of love, it was lack of knowledge, truth, and and love together as a dichotomy. If you look at that, how perfectly they go together, and then how perfectly the God goes together with love and truth. Well, that's where I caught Oprah, as you well know, is hold on.